Hello and welcome back to the very latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, for many people, the time has come to start dating again, but this can be a really difficult and daunting task if you have no idea what to do. The world has changed completely, but with it comes new opportunity. So today, to help me talk about this fantastic topic, I've got the wonderful Annika, who is known as Date Massey. Annika, welcome. How are you doing?
Thank you so much for having me. Hi, James. How are you?
I'm very good indeed, thank you. It's great to have you. Now, I know that you're a dating expert yourself, and you also have been running Asian dating events for quite some time. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So it's coming about 7 years now. I've been running my company. The company is called Date Massey, and I'd say 7 successful years, despite the pandemic that we've just had or we're going through.
Yeah, it's a strange time, isn't it? And events have been on hold for most people. Are you looking to start running events again soon?
Ideally, I am in the summer, but whilst, obviously the government have said that we can kind of just, it's almost Freedom Day in July. I've got to be mindful that my audience are still, whilst we're calling it Freedom Day, they might not feel that it's Freedom Day for them. So I think I'm going to have to kind of ease back into it and basically take the guidance from my audience rather than just because the government have said we can do it.
I agree with you. I haven't run events for a very long time. I know we spoke on the phone a few times, and I am planning to do events probably next year, but I don't think the time is right. This Freedom Day to me is just nonsense because it's going to be keep moving, isn't it, this Freedom Day? And there'll always be something going on. So I'm not sure that this Freedom Day in July is going to happen. I hope it does, but if it's not, it will happen in the summer. And like you said, people are still quite nervous about going out dating again, aren't they?
Completely. And I think that's what I mean. Whilst I'm seeing a lot of people just sort of kind of adding, putting out dates and saying, oh, we're going to be back and stuff like that, which is great. And I understand some companies, they have to do that. I think if anyone that knows me, I've been in events for 17 years. So I'm constantly living off a contingency plan. So that's where my thinking comes from, that whilst, yes, I get given the go ahead, it doesn't necessarily mean, let's just go and do an event on, the 18th of July. Sorry, not 18th July, 20th of July after Freedom Day. Like I said, I would love to get back to my events because that is where what I love doing. I love bringing people together and creating opportunities. But for me, I think I will wait until I know that I can definitely create the right opportunities for people. And also, like I said, it's just the comfort levels. If my audience don't feel ready to date again, there's no point in me running events. So at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time getting to know them, getting to know their pressure points and seeing how they're feeling rather than just saying, yep, let's just do an event. And, I'll be kind of scraping at the tickets because I don't know how everyone's feeling. Whereas I spend a lot of time getting to know my audience. So whilst I'm an event expert, I'm also a dating expert. So I'm very mindful of people's experience and creating the right opportunities.
That's fantastic. But what made you get into this in the first place?
So as I mentioned, I've been in events for 17 years. I specialising in corporate events, so a lot of gala away days, specialising in team building especially. So about 13 years ago, so my concept actually came around 13 years ago. I was running a lot of team building exercises for corporate clients, and I could see the concept of team building and how it just boosted morale in the office, how it changed people's personality. You could see departments getting really competitive, and they all had the common factor of the business involved. But you could just see the whole dynamics of the company would change the next day after they've had a bit of team building. And at the time I was with my partner, but I was surrounded by so many friends and family that were struggling to meet their match. And so I thought, well, actually, why don't I use my event expertise and try something new? So let me try activities where I give people something to focus on. And so they're not having to think about speed dating questions because that was quite prominent at the time. So this is 13 years ago. If you're a shy person, speed dating questions can be really, really daunting. Those 3 minutes can really feel like a lifetime. So I thought if you give people an activity, they can focus on it and it can just bring out their personality. So I did 2 events 13 years ago. They worked really, really well, proved my theory right. But then my husband, fortunate for me, proposed to me. And so my commitments took over. And then life just took over as well. And then I just decided about 7 years ago, looking at the dating scene again and seeing that people were still struggling, and dating apps were quite prominent at the time as well, but again, like that kind of personal touch to dating was missing. And people weren't really getting the right opportunities. And I thought, right, I'm going to launch Date Massey, and I'm going to do it for the Hindu and Sikh community because that's the market that I've got access to. And the name Date Massey, it actually means auntie in the Asian community. So we always have that one auntie, predominantly in the Asian community, but I'm sure we have it within across cultures, which will go around and kind of try and match make everybody at an event or a wedding and sort of ask, when are you getting married? When are you getting married? And people used to hate that. But I thought, right, I want to put a spin on this and make dating fun again. So I'm going to take the concept of Massey, the auntie, but I'm going to turn her into my generation. So I'm a woman in my 30s. So I understand our generation, our pressures. And I thought, right, I'm going to make dating fun again. And how I'm going to do it is by giving it a fun name that people will kind of associate with, and run fun dating events where people can literally come, have fun, show their personality, and literally feel good about themselves and boost their confidence. So it's not necessarily coming and just, walking away with a person that you're going to get married to. It's about coming and just enjoying dating. Because I think I'd heard so many bad date event stories where people were going and the ratios were wrong. The kind of people that they were meeting were just not right as well. So I was like, right, if I'm going to run events, I'm going to do it properly. I'm going to make sure they're in great venues, make sure there's a guaranteed 50-50 split. Otherwise, I won't run the event. And I just wanted to basically create fun opportunities for people, our age group, to let them just realize that actually you can meet somebody. It's just about creating those right opportunities. So I do a lot of work behind the scenes to basically get people in the right frame of mind, and so that they're meeting the right people on the day as well.
I love that. Now, I've run Asian singles events myself for years, hundreds. We talked about this before, hundreds and hundreds of events. It's a very difficult thing to do. And I'm not going to name drop the companies I work with. This is your podcast today. This is about you.
Thank you.
But I haven't run them for some time. But I do have lots of Hindu and Sikh friends because of this, and many clients. And I do work with lots of different brands because of it. And I love it. And I found that they were great fun things to do. But like you said, getting the ratios can be difficult. Even if you've got 50-50 on paper, actually getting them to turn up is a very, very difficult challenge. So this is what I like about your events. You don't just do singles events and speed dating like I used to. You do more activities, fun activities. I think you mentioned pizza making, didn't you, to me?
Yeah, so my pizza making is very, very popular. Whilst I'm known as Date Massey, I'm also known as Pizza Massey now. So because everyone's literally, when they're recommending me, they're like, go to her, she's the pizza lady, she's the pizza lady. And the reason it's so popular is because you just get to know so much about a person, in a cooking environment, but especially pizza. It's everyone loves it. And just, a simple thing is just literally from the toppings people pick to how creative they get as well. You'll get to know somebody's personality that way without having to ask any questions. You'll get to know whether somebody's vegetarian or not, which is within the Asian culture still is a big question. And a bit of a deal breaker sometimes. So, somebody's going for the pepperoni, you'll be like, okay, he eats meat or she eats meat, and you'll realize whether that's something you can compromise on or not, but you haven't had to ask that question. So these are all like I said, these are all the little things that I'm constantly doing in the background to make this experience completely seamless for them. But I've done the homework beforehand. So I understand there's certain questions that you can't ask in a dating environment, or you shouldn't as well, because you're there to just get to know people. You don't have to give away your whole life story and things like that. So yeah, the pizza making is brilliant. I run competitions, I give prizes out, and they get to sit down and eat their creation afterwards. And I just see the massive transformation from when they arrive feeling a bit nervous, thinking, oh my God, I'm going to look like a prat because I can't cook in front of somebody. And by the end of it, they're like, do you want a slice of my pizza? I'm like, well, there you go. It's all gone out the window. So yeah, it's a great event. I love it. And I'm hoping to be able to host them again as well, because I've missed playing chef with my audience. I say audience, my singletons. I really do love it, dough tossing and all sorts. So yeah, it's great fun.
It sounds fun. You mentioned how you can tell a lot about a person by the pizza topping. That's very, very true. There's a whole lot of psychological things you can do with this. So if they have spicy toppings, maybe they're into a bit more passionate in life, and you can tell things. I've never understood in the Asian community, it's not vegetarian and meat eaters, is it? It's veg and non-veg. So it's like alienating people that eat meat straight away. But I find
Pretty
people,
much.
it is, I never understood that, but that's something, a little quirk that I've noticed over the years with this. And I've always wanted to run cooking classes myself, as in baking cakes. I thought the Great British Bake Off style event would be really cool. The Great British Date Off, something like that. Where you
I've kind of looked into so many different dating, so many cooking styles as well. The only challenge I have, I mean, you know, I'm fortunate all my events do sell out and they're very, very quick. But with the cooking challenge, I do find some, originally men were a bit more hesitant to come forward because they were like, I don't want to look like I cannot cook in front of a woman. And I had to kind of almost change the dialogue of the event and just said, you know what, it's not about that at all. And funny enough, I do, like I said, I give prizes. And for anyone that's listening, don't be put off by this, but I even give a prize for the biggest tosser. And because it's something that you, but in a different way, you actually want to be the biggest tosser. You want to be able to be the person that can, you know, toss your pizza the highest, but not in the wrong way. But, you know, in a dating environment, it's something fun. People can make a laugh, you know, have a laugh about it. And that completely changes the atmosphere in the room the minute that happens as well, because they're like, actually, I've forgotten I'm at a dating event. This is just so much fun. And literally that's when I see the switch in the room. And my events are 4 hours. And by the fourth hour, they literally leave hugging me, just going, I cannot believe this was a dating event. I came so nervous and I've loved it. And I feel so good about myself. And I'm like, that for me is priceless. So
you should try doing pancake making. That sounds quite a good idea, doesn't it? Maybe.
Yeah, I could do.
How many pancakes you can scoff? I tried to get some cooking things in one of my events a couple of years ago, and it set the smoke alarm, the fire alarm off in the venue, so it wasn't allowed. You know, there was popcorn making we tried to do, so it doesn't always work. You have to get the right venue to do the right thing, don't you? But you mentioned just now, people are very, very nervous about attending these events. So what advice would you give somebody who was nervous about coming back into dating again, especially after quite a long break, as everyone's had? What would you say to them?
I would say, it's funny enough, I actually just did a workshop on this, basically dating back to basics. And that's exactly what I would tell somebody. You almost need to take dating off the table. I know there's this desperation thinking, I've been single for the last year. How am I going to meet anyone? But if you put that extra pressure on yourself and think, right, that's it. You know, like I said, a bit like the restrictions, doesn't mean just because the restrictions are easing, you have to be the first one out there and be, you know, at the first dating event. You need to ease back into it. And I would say treat it like as if you'd taken a break from a work environment. So if you'd taken leave from work for medical reasons, you know, you've been off work for 3 months, let's say, you're going to be a bit, you know, unsure about getting back into the office, being around people again, answering questions and things like that. It would be a natural phase, wouldn't it? Your employers wouldn't expect you to just jump back in again and do a full day. So same way, you have to almost switch your mindset and say, right, I'm going to take dating off the table. I'm just going to concentrate on being social again. Let's do that first. Let's work on actually building my social skills. You know, like I said, even for me, like I may come across very confident right now, or to anyone that meets me and think, well, it's easy for you to say. But I myself I'm being very selective about who I'm seeing at the moment. I'm not doing groups. I'm not ready to be in a crowded environment. I'm still asking people questions. Even somebody says to me, oh, you know, can we go somebody? I'll give you a lift. I'm like, no, I'll drive. And it's about that comfort level. So don't be afraid to tell somebody as well. If you are speaking to somebody, getting to know somebody, be vulnerable. It's okay to be vulnerable. We've all gone through this whole experience together. This isn't a situation pre-pandemic where you felt like you could just be, you know, whatever situation you're going through, it's your own. This isn't. We've all experienced it as a nation. So any anxiety you're feeling, the other person's probably feeling it. And by actually being open, you're going to open up dialogue with a person as well. So whether this is a friend or someone new that you're getting to know, I would just say, take dating off the table. That will relieve so much pressure for you and build your skills. And, you know, if you are in the dating field, if you are looking to get back into dating, I'd say date your friends first before you almost use them as practice. You know, so if there's a venue that you want to try and think, oh, this might be good for a date, go with your friend first, scope it out so that you feel like the expert. So then when you do have a date, you know where the toilets are, you know, what sanitization stations are, you know, little things. But these are all the things that we're going to have to now consider when we're going on dates. And, you know, that in itself is going to build up more pressure and more nerves for a first date. Whereas if you've already kind of practiced beforehand, you yourself are kind of confident, you're giving yourself that kind of extra elevation, thinking, right, I can do this. I'm not having to juggle several nerves around me with everything else and things like that. So that's what I would say to people, that take it slowly. Don't feel because of restrictions that you have to just get back out there. It's okay to be a phased approach.
Completely agree with you. Take your time. There's no rush to do anything. Even though it is going to be an amazing summer of love coming up, I think everyone has to go at their own pace, don't they? It's really true. You just reminded me, before the pandemic, I used to offer a mock dating service where people can book dates with my team of actors and actresses and go on a practice date. And I stopped doing that. But maybe now is a really good time to reintroduce it, because people are feeling nervous, aren't they? And this is a good way of doing a bit of a role play and getting themselves back into this. So some point today, I'm going to add that back onto my website, that particular activity. It was really popular before, because people that are very nervous about this, people that were introverted before, have been quite enjoying the pandemic, quite enjoying the fact they haven't got to go out and meet someone, almost like an excuse. But the time has come now to go out there and seize the opportunities. So if it was a normal summer, what sort of activities would you be planning now?
I'd probably be planning like summer activities. If I could do things outdoors, would be great, like rooftop bars and things like that. My quizzes are very, very popular because I always pick themes that my audience are going to love. So I did a chocolate quiz just before lockdown. I've done, 90s themes, noughties themes, all sorts of things. So I'm always throwing things in the mix. So people do like that. And with my quiz questions as well, they're, you might seem again like a very easy event to organize, but I don't. I make sure I design every single question, because I then plan every question to know that it's going to spark conversation. You don't want it to be a yes or no quick answer, or somebody's going to know the answer straight away. You want to challenge them. You want to make sure that they're working around the team. Everybody gets, gets to put their input in as well, and that way they can kind of learn about each other. You can be like, oh, how do you know the answer? Oh, I remember this song because I was driving my car to Nottingham when I was going to university. There, you've already learned that this guy used to go to university in Nottingham just from one question. So that's the sort of things that I'm doing. But yeah, I think it's event planning right now is very, very difficult. Like I said, whilst I'm doing it, I am finding it very, very challenging, just because the dynamics have changed. Comfort levels with everybody, even with an activity as well, things that we take for granted before. Let's say a ping pong tournament, you've got to make sure the bats are sanitized, all sorts of things, things that you just wouldn't think about, but I've got to think about that, and I've got to factor that time in, and whether that's going to ruin the environment as well. It's fine when you've got a group of 6 friends or work colleagues, but you already know each other, and you don't mind sharing something with them. Not when you're putting people in a room full of 30 people that they don't know how active they've been, whether they've been vaccinated. That's another question people are finding very difficult. I mean, people are asking it, but again, some people have chosen not to get vaccinated, so that kind of throws a question. I know that the apps are kind of really pushing people to add it as their profile, to get the dialogue going as well.
That's an interesting thing, because I'm actually the government spokesman for that particular campaign. I don't know if you knew that. I've been doing lots of radio shows about that. All these apps have been putting their little badges on there saying you've been vaccinated. And I've been going on radio shows and doing lots of media promoting this story, because I honestly believe that it's not so much about whether you believe it's a good idea or not, but putting the other person at risk is a dangerous thing. And making them know that it's safe to date you, making them feel comfortable, is important when it comes to dating. What are your thoughts on that? Do you think it's a good idea to tell people that you're vaccinated or not?
I think it is. I think, prior to this, we were so keen to tell people our status, I'm divorced or I'm a single parent and things like that, because you feel like, it's kind of relieves pressure from yourself, but also at least it gives other people an understanding. Now, this is, again, what I was saying, that this is something we're all going through. And I know for a fact that if I was meeting up with friends, forget dating, friends, I'd probably ask them, have you had your vaccine yet? Oh, how many have you had? 1 or 2? It's a conversation that we're all having. I think the comfort level is difficult when somebody turns around and says they haven't been vaccinated, because then it's up to them whether they want to disclose their reasons not to. But let's say you're speaking to somebody and they've turned around and said they're not vaccinated, and they haven't given you a reason. That's a decision for you to then make. If they then turn around and say, well, let's meet up for a first date or something like that, it's something you need to be mindful of. But, like I said, with vaccination, similar to what you were saying, it's about protecting us, but protecting everyone else and those that are around us as well. So it's worth getting vaccinated. And if it is, a bit like my pizza making, if you can if you can find out something without having to ask it, all the better, isn't it? It's one thing ticked off the list, and it just puts your mind at risk, at rest. So, you know, why not? And if you can just have a little badge there, great. Colourful badge as well.
I found about 95% of people think it's a great idea, but 5% are very, very anti this whole concept.
Yeah.
But my thought is, if it stimulates debate and it gets people talking, that's always going to be a good thing. Whether it's the apps or in real life or about this at all. And I think it's good. It puts people's mind at rest, doesn't it, like you said? Because you mentioned just now about how you have to vaccinate ping pong balls and things like that. Vaccinate ping pong balls, how you had to sterilise them.
Sanitize. Yeah.
That's it. I was away at the weekend. I went to a big, wonderful weekend away with my family. And we were playing ping pong, we were playing darts and snooker and mini golf and all these wonderful activities. And like you said, they had to sterilise everything constantly all the time in between the different slots. And so much work goes into this and so much effort in cleaning the ping pong tables and making sure that everyone's wearing masks. And it goes on, doesn't it? The list of these things you have to do now.
Yeah. And I think, like I said, with that, you know, like you said, if you're with your family, you wouldn't mind because it's actually peace of mind for you. You think, actually, yes, you know, we want to play this game. We're willing to wait 2 minutes while you clean that table, because at least then we know, right, the kids are playing, we're safe. But in a dating environment, it's different because you don't know these people. But also you're there trying to create fun, you're trying to create conversation between people, and then to have that constant reminder, oh yeah, we have to sanitize this, we have to sanitize that, it almost throws your flow as well. Let's say you're talking to somebody and then we have to just say, right, can we just stop the game because we need to clean the tables? We'll be like, oh yeah, I've forgotten that we're in a pandemic again. It's almost like I'm trying to kind of, again, a bit like dating, what I was saying earlier, taking it off the table. I'm trying to take COVID off the table in both, literally from the ping pong table and from your minds, you know, because I know that the minute it comes back up again in conversation, it does remind you, oh God, yeah, I've got to keep my distance. I've got, and that's what I've noticed that with groups as well, and which is why I'm a bit apprehensive, is that when you meet up with somebody, that first 5 minutes, you are going to have your mask on, keep your distance. Oh, shall we hug? Shall we not? Then that's it. After 5 minutes, that comfort level is sunk in. You're with familiar people. That 1 meter's gone. You know, you might even start rubbing shoulders with each other. I'll grab. Oh, are you going to grab that last samosa? I'll grab it before that 5 minutes. You would have been like, actually, no, I'll get a separate plate. It is that, though, you know, and it's no one's fault. It's just because obviously we are socializing with people that we're familiar with, because that's who we feel comfortable with. And then the rules go out the window. So same with the dating environment. I want them to go out the window so that they can enjoy themselves, but I also don't want to be responsible that should an outbreak happen, you know, it'll be like, well, you forced us to stand next to each other. So.
I went to visit my 101-year-old grandma on the weekend as well. She's in a care home. And to get to see her, we had to have a COVID test and have half an hour waiting in the car for the results of that. Then we had to put the masks on and an apron and rubber gloves just to do that. And I understand it's really important for her safety, but imagine you went to a singles event, or anyway, just socializing in general. We have to go have a half an hour COVID test and do this before you could enter a pizza restaurant or you can enter a bar. That would just be absolutely terrible thing to do, wouldn't it? But so we are quite lucky that things have got to this stage where we can go into bars and we can do these activities. But people are still quite nervous about the whole dating thing, getting back into dating again. What other problems do you think people might have who are thinking now about dating?
I think what's happened is, you know, what we were saying about everyone's got so comfortable with their sweatpants, and it's, you know, lockdown fatigue is really kicked in. We're, you know, like, as much as we're itching to get out there, if this had just been a 3-month stay at home, it's fine. It would be a novelty. This has now become our mindset. We've adapted habits that we're enjoying. You know, even like my husband, he's sort of going back into work again, odd days, like going site visits and stuff like that. And so when I have the house to myself, I used to have the house to myself. I'm like, oh my God, I'm finding it. I'm trying to feel the time, or feel the you know, the sound in the house. It feels really empty and things like that. But I think the other thing is that people have forgotten what their strengths are. And that's one thing I would say to people, that, you know, to remind themselves of what you've achieved in the last 3 to 6 months, you know, to boost your confidence. I myself have had to do that. You know, like I said, as a business owner, my business has been hit really hard. And it's been really challenging. Some days I've just thought, what's the point? What should I even come back? And, you know, it's probably something I shouldn't really be admitting, but you do feel like that, because you're like, well, you know, everything I'm encouraging people to do is obviously against COVID rules. So I myself have had to really pick myself up and go, no, actually think about it. Whilst you haven't done events this last year, what have you been doing? I've been out there, I've been speaking to my audience, I've been connecting with them on a level that I never thought I'd be able to do. I've had so many media opportunities and things like that as well. So I've actually achieved so much in a year without events. And that's the same with anybody else. What have you worked? A lot of people I know, so my audience especially, their mindset has been split a lot during COVID. A lot of people took a break and thought, right, I'm going to take a natural break and I'm going to work on myself. And they've continued to do that throughout this whole pandemic. And, they're probably in a better mindset for themselves. They're probably more positive, and they're also kind of, figured out what it is that they want about in a partner, or even just in life, what's important to them. And the other people obviously carried on in virtual dated because they were comfortable with it. But again, they've kind of had a love-hate relationship with that, because, you feel like you just need to be doing it just to make sure that you are doing something about your dating career. But I would say biggest thing is learning your strengths. Just learn 3 strengths about yourself. And if you don't know what they are, just ask a friend and just say, look, I'm updating my LinkedIn profile. Don't even say it's a dating bio. Just say I'm updating my LinkedIn profile and I'm really struggling. Because this is one thing I've noticed. We're very quick to tell everyone else what we love about themselves, but we don't know what we love about ourselves. I would, if somebody said to me, what do you love? Name 3 things, I'd really struggle. But if I had to tell them what I loved about them, I'd be able to spout it off. So use that as encouragement, and, find out what it is about your strengths and kind of write them down and keep them visible and keep reminding yourself, because that in itself will kind of boost that confidence. And I've had to do that myself when I've had really low days as well, and think, right, you can keep going, And it is just a lull right now. And it's up to you how you choose to go forward.
I think that's great advice there. You mentioned about the strengths, because over lockdown, I've created an online dating course for women called Dating Decoded. And one of the first things I did in this is develop this worksheet and some information about working on the things that are most important to you. And I always ask people what their strengths are, what are their USPs, what make them special. Yeah. And most people cannot answer that question. They get embarrassed, don't they? They cringe, or they tell me something really generic, like they're friendly, or they're loyal, or they're like having fun, which is just a puppy. It's nothing more than that. So I use that now for a particular worksheet for every one of my clients, all these different things. They always find it really, really useful, which is great, because it's a good foundation to think about these things. Think about what you've achieved and all the things you've done. And think about, maybe you've learned to bake banana bread during lockdown. Yeah. Maybe you've done some yoga. Maybe you can make samosas, wherever it might be. Yeah. Think about the things that you're proud about, and you can talk about them. Just talking conversation starters when you do meet a new person.
I definitely decluttered my house, that's for sure. And as I mentioned, being an organizer, that is a big thing for me. Like, forget somebody bringing me a big bunch of flowers. This was just like, yes, I can see my files now. Everything's coded. And that in itself, but you don't realize that by decluttering that, you're decluttering your mind as well, because there was so much I was kind of feeling like, gosh, I was adding so much pressure on myself, thinking I should be doing this, I should be doing more. You get also, social media, we've all been on it so much more as well. I myself am guilty of it, and obviously looking at what other people are doing and thinking, oh my God, look, they're doing something, or they're launching this, and why am I not doing that? And again, I've had to kind of take myself off and say, right, I'm going to take a break, and I'm going to just concentrate on what I've done. And then when you start listing things out, you actually realize, oh my God, I've done this, or I've done that. I painted the shed, whilst it's not dating, it's like, well, it needed to get done and it never get done. It's another thing I've ticked off my list, and I'm a very much list person. So if I can see that I've done 10 things, that is like, wow, yes, it's been a productive day, or something like that. But this is all about your mindset. And I think that's the biggest thing. I think prior to the pandemic, we were so busy with dating, and it was a rat race. Like, right, I've got to go out and I've got to meet loads of people, and I've got to be dating 6 different people at the same time. I need options. I think now things are slowing down, and people are realizing quality over quantity. That's definitely something that I've noticed. A lot of people are saying that they just, are now concentrating on getting to know 1 or 2 people rather than 6. and just having quality conversations with those people and just taking it slowly. And, you know, it's, and almost going back to the old methods. And I think it needs to come back again. Like we used to date. I know I dated my husband for like 3 months before we became exclusive. And, you know, you wouldn't date anybody else in that time. You'd see it through. You'd be like, right, okay, is this going to work? And if it didn't, then you'd take a break and you'd be single again. And then you'd meet somebody else. Now, people are single and they're dating 6 different people at the same time because they want to have options. And I think the problem is that with too many options, it's hindering our dating life. And that's why dating's taking a lot longer these days, because you're surrounded by options. You don't want to let go of anything, but you don't want to commit either. So that goes on for years and years. And, you know, you're talking to somebody on an app, you're talking to somebody's recommended you to somebody or a colleague. And, you know, before you know it, like I said, you're talking to 6 different people. Are you actually talking to 6 different people and giving 100% of yourself? No, you're not. You know, you're going to be answering messages at midnight when you're not really in the right frame of mind. And then you're going to wonder why this is kind of, that relationship has fizzled out here. He's not really giving me much attention, but are you really giving that other person the same amount of attention that you would want to receive? So that's one thing I'd question people and say, if you are on the apps right now, question your reasons. Are you actually genuinely looking to meet somebody, or is it just to fill that social void that we're feeling right now and just feel like we're interacting? And also in our mind telling us, yeah, I'm doing something about my dating life, but are you?
I think it's a balance. I think you're right. You can have too many options and that can distract you. But it's good to have a couple of options at any one time, just as a backup. And not when you start seeing someone seriously, of course. But I believe you wouldn't just go for one job interview and then stop. You keep going for job interviews and you actually get to the second interview. Otherwise, you can lose the attention of all the other people that are interested in you. So I think do what you can, but don't overdo it. You're right. There's so much choice out there. And I think it's great that, like you said, people have uncluttered their love lives now because they haven't talked to so many people. They haven't been out there. So now dating has slowed down. And I hope that continues. And people do continue to take more time getting to know each other over this wonderful opportunity of the summer that's coming up. So, Annika, thank you so much for talking to me. We're coming to the end now. So let's just round up now. Can you tell everyone, if they want to find out more about you and your events, where do they go?
Yeah, so my website is datemassy.com, so DATEMASI.com, and I'm on Instagram and Facebook at the same handle, datemassy as well. So you can find me on there. You can join our mailing list through, the website, and I can let you know when we are coming back with our all-important date for your diary, which will be our events. But in the meantime, I'm always sharing like loads of tips and advice on my socials as well. So things that we've talked about today as well. If you wanted more information, there's loads of IGT videos with basically how to boost your confidence. So don't feel like you haven't got the support. That you can either come to me or James, and I'm sure we can help you get back out there again when you're ready.
We will, and hopefully we can do something together at some point. We discussed that.
Yeah, definitely. I think probably by next year we'll be in a better position to be like, yeah, we can do something.
We've got some big plans, everyone that's listening. So thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed myself.
It's been wonderful. Thank you very much. I know we'll do this again at some point. So have a great day. Bye for now.
You too. Take care. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.